Having shaken up the market with its very first Ioniq, Hyundai does so again with this far more sophisticated Ioniq5. This time round, the Ioniq is only an EV, and it's quite an arresting one, aimed at premium compact hatch and crossover models typified by cars like Volkswagen's ID4, Ford's Mustang MACH-E, the Polestar 2, and this Hyundai's close cousin, the Kia EV6. You have to offer something interesting and different in that kind of company. The Ioniq5 very definitely does.
As usual in this class of EV, the Ioniq5 spears away from rest, although not in quite so pointlessly frantic a manner as some of its rivals. We have a mid-range rear-driven model here with a 217 PS electric motor and a larger 73 kilowatt-hour battery that's good for up to 298 miles of range. The same battery powers a top 305 PS all-wheel drive variant with electric motors both front and rear. That's good for 285 miles. Or you can choose a rear-driven variant with a smaller 58 kilowatt-hour battery, which is restricted to 238 miles. Whichever version you choose, on the move, you'll find this car set up primarily for comfort, although it does clatter a bit over the nastier tarmac tears. Things smooth out on the highway though, where you'll find yourself more inclined to appreciate the ride and handling benefits that are supposedly inherent in this car's market-first adoption of integrated drive axle technology, which combines drive shafts and wheel bearings, supposedly to the benefit of ride comfort and handling stability. Another first, for this segment anyway, is the adoption of the 800-volt charging infrastructure made possible by this car's sophisticated eGMP electrified platform. This will allow this car to use the new generation of super rapid battery stations, which can charge at up to 350 kilowatts. Many rivals are currently limited to charging at 125 kilowatts. Use the 50 kilowatt public charger that you're more likely to find, and you'll be able to charge the 73 kilowatt hour battery from 10 to 80% in 56 minutes and 30 seconds. No harm in being exact there. It would take 10 hours and 53 minutes to charge the 73 kilowatt hour battery from 0 to 100% at home using a 10.5 kilowatt three-phase garage wall box. Preserving charge will be much easier to do if you use frequently the car's iPedal feature. That's the most extreme of the various brake regeneration settings that you can select using these steering wheel paddles. This wheel-mounted mode button here also gives you settings, eco, normal and comfort, which tailor steering feel and throttle response. Where do we even start here? The Ioniq5 looks like nothing else. Well, almost nothing else. Designer ex-Lamborghini stylist Luc Donkervolker says it's inspired by a 1970 Hyundai Pony, a model remembered as the brand's very first production car, but more representative, you'd think, of an aesthetic era the company might prefer to forget. Approach it and you realise the smoke and mirrors effect of all this dramatic detail, disguising a profile perspective that might look golf-sized in the pictures, but turns out to be closer to the size of something like a BMW X3 SUV in its 4.6 metre length. Curious quirks, of course, as you can see, are very much a feature here. This diagonal Zorro-like slash that folds across the flank with origami-like precision, the forward-leaning C-pillar, the flush door handles, this unusually inverted lined lower panel, and the weird rifling on the wheel arch cladding. At the front, the theatre continues. This angry clamshell bonnet, Hyundai's first, with its oversized badge and flat profile, is set above these fabulous graph paper style 8-bit LED matrix headlights, detailed with 256 cubic pixels. And folk you've passed will be squinting at the rear end of this car as it vanishes into the distance on a wave of electrified torque. This neat roof spoiler here is actually a wing with slots which enable air to flow through it. And the spherical rear lamp signature illuminates through these narrow pixel-like LED clusters. Right, enough with all that, time to take a seat inside. Now, as you approach, the flush-fitting door handles spring out and these intricately sculpted doors open wide to admit you to the kind of futuristic cabin that a car looking like this ought to have. Now, Hyundai doesn't call this a cabin. What we have instead here is a living space. However you brand it, this is quite different from anything that you'll have ever tried elsewhere. It's light, airy, spacious, and rather like the exterior, it's rather self-consciously avant-garde. There are, though, a few elements of design which might feel dimly familiar. This walk-through footwell here is a throwback to old Minis and Beetles. There's the same kind of weirdly shaped two-spoke wheel as you'll find on the Honda E. And what you'll notice first and foremost is a similar kind of widescreen twin monitor dash layout as is used by larger Mercedes models, with a couple of joined together 12.3-inch displays here. The driver's supervision instrument cluster, it's in front of me here, that complements this central touchscreen, satellite navigation and media center. You sit quite high and SUV-like, and unusual design flourishes are almost everywhere you look. There are no door handles, for example. You just pull instead on this backlit rail. Gear selection is taken care of by this chunky and rather phallic looking lower right hand wheel stalk. The pedals get plus and minus designations, and the huge glove box is actually a slide out tray. Stretch up to this top variant and this unusual universal island central storage console slides back and forth, and you can pay extra for these glorious relaxation premium front seats, which extend right back and feature power retractable calf rests, so you can comfortably nod off for 40 winks while you're powering up at your local charging station. Okay, let's take a look in the rear. The door for which opens so wide that you might struggle to put it right back in a really confined space. And once in the back, well, if you thought the front of the cabin was spacious and airy, then this is on a different level. It's truly comparable to a much larger car. The underpinnings are flat too, so no central tunnel to impede a centre-seated passenger. There really is room to stretch right out here. Even before you start sliding the bench, it moves over a range of 135 millimetres, or exploring the way that you can recline the backrest right the way rearwards. Even with a 6-footer up front, it'll still feel limo-like. Here, though, is something that isn't conventional. There's this little lower 250-volt, 16-amp, 3-pin V2L, or vehicle-to-load port. It's only usable when the ignition's on, and it's great not only for a laptop or a phone, but also something even bigger that you might be carrying, like, say, an electric scooter or a drone. Now, using this extra cost adapter, you can also activate a second V2L port here within the powered driver's side charging flap, where you'll find the usual conventional socket, here embellished with 10 illuminating pixel squares designating the battery charge status. Right, enough with that. Let's finish with a look at the boot, which, providing you avoid base trim, will be electrically powered, and you can operate it with a swipe of your foot beneath the bumper if you happen to be approaching the IONIQ5 all laden down with bags. The tailgate rises to reveal a predictably high load platform. Those huge battery packs just have to sit somewhere, but a pretty reasonable 527 litre cargo capacity. If you push forward the rear seat backs, up to 1,587 litres of total space can be revealed. Now, not all EVs in this segment give you some extra storage space with charging leads beneath the bonnet. The ID.4 doesn't, for example, but you do get that here. If you go for the top all-wheel drive model with its extra front-mounted motor, this front space will inevitably suffer to the point where you really won't be able to fit anything much more substantial than a slim laptop bag in here. But with more common rear-driven variants like the one we have here, as you can see, it's really quite a usefully sized space. If the IONIQ5 isn't enough to position Hyundai toe-to-toe with the most advanced offerings from European brand automotive design, it's hard to imagine what would be. It looks arresting and it lacks nothing in terms of the latest EV technology. Going forward, this car will sire a whole range of EVs, not only from Hyundai, but also from its group partner marques Kia and Genesis. But its even greater importance lies with the way that it redefines what people can expect from this brand. It's a confident statement of intent.